All right, let me get to the spot. Oh, what's going on, everybody? Let me get a little tighter here. Oh, yeah. Come on. Let me get this a little tighter view. Come on, get that camera. Get that camera going. All right, let me get centered. There we go. Oh, yeah, there we go. We centered. All right. This is Plan Your Greatness, and I am your gracious host, Carlton Hamilton. Let's get right to it. We are still, I think, on the final two videos of Chapter 8. It's such a powerful chapter. As I was reading through it and looking at all the different things that I was bringing together, now I'm sitting over here chopping them up into videos so I can share with you on a particular topic so it's isolated. All right. So again, Chapter 8, this particular part of the chapter, and I talk about the awareness of now, really embracing the now, and it really coincides with some of the new things that I'm coming into, that's coming into my awareness, that I'm extracting from myself, as far as with epigenetics and quantum physics, as far as really understanding how your state and your energy really impacts how you look at your past, how you look at your future, and how you see your ability to make those changes now. Okay? That's why I say, you really got to embrace the now. So, one of the books, let me grab it. Where is it? Where did I put that book? Did I just have it? Man, search for me. Here it is. Sorry about that. All right. I made reference to this book several times. Let me move back. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, then I'm just going to quickly explain. That book was written 8 days after Viktor Frankl was released from one of the worst concentration camps during World War II. Okay, he was a clinical psychologist, very respected guy, probably wealthy. He got swept up in the whole Holocaust thing. He really did some observing while he was in there, and he watched people. Now think about this. He doesn't know whether he's going to live or die based on the nonsense that's going on in there. But what he did was just observe how people were living, dying, surviving, getting by. And think about it. 8 days after he was out, he wrote that book in approximately 8 days. So somewhere in there, he either started writing it right when he got out and it took him 8 days, or 8 days after he was out, he started writing it and was done shortly after that. It's a real quick read, but he hit on some very powerful stuff. So one of the things that he mentioned was, you must embrace the now. Now, in this, what I'm learning with quantum physics and epigenetics is that you want to stay in this kind of awareness, but really start looking at your unlimited possibilities. I get that. But they also understand that once you come out of that meditation and set up what you're going to have in the future, you must come back to the now, which is what Dr. Frankl talks about. Come back to the now and get busy in the action of what you have now created in the future. You now have a clear idea of, I have faith. I know. I feel good about that. Yes, I have an expectation. Yes, because I can see it. It isn't here yet. So there's things that you must do now to make sure that thing becomes a reality. Because you can just say, oh man, yeah, that's going to be my future. And you come back today and you sit on your ass. No, it's not going to happen. So there's a connection. I can see the future. I can create the future. I can have it so clear in my mind that I can taste it. But you better come back to the now and start doing all the necessary things so that when that time comes, you taste it. You've been tasting it the whole time. But if you don't actively do all the necessary things, you'll just have this, this taste. You won't actually bring that out of the future into the physical now once you get to that now. All right. So the understanding is, as I make this comparison, is American incarceration is a unique beast. As I've had 20 years next year. May 31st, 2019 will be 20 years. 1999, 2009, 2009. It'll be 20 years since I was released from incarceration. All right. So there was there's some mental things that I did that kept me out of there because I know the recidivism rate is in the 90s. So how did I not go back? I'm probably going to do a video on that. Like, what were the things that I did to ensure? Because I didn't, there were some things I had, family in place and stuff, but you still got to act upon that. But again, let's get back to the American incarceration. It is a unique beast. And I don't care what any politician says. I was in there and I saw what was available as far as resources. I was at a very high level. I was in there for armed robbery. So I was in a very high level. The only thing that was higher than myself, which armed robbery is a class 2 felony. The only thing higher than class 2 felony is a class 1, and that's murder. Manslaughter, all those things, they're all class 2s. Attempted murder, that's a class 2. You see what I'm saying? Murder. Premeditated, whatever murder, that is 1, class 1. All right. So there was only one level higher. So I had every mismatch of everything. And the particular yard that I was on was called an overflow yard because my score was so high. It was an overflow yard that when guys that had murder charges, one of my closest friends, matter of fact, and I need to write him back, Nate Dogg. He's in there for triple murder. Okay. I'm not saying he did it or not. Okay. There's some things with his case or whatever that probably need to be reviewed, and hopefully, I'll be able to do that, help him out in the future. But those were my cellmates. Those were the guys I played basketball with every day. Bunch of guys that came from a higher level, and then once their scores were lowered, they actually came to my yard. Murderers, killers, on my yard, playing basketball with them. Crazy. All right. So what I'm getting at is American incarceration is not about rehabilitation, or in the correct term is habilitate. Because if you break rehabilitation down into rehabilitation, which means you go right back in a circle to right where you came from. Now, does that sound like you got any better? No, you just came right back around to where you were. Habilitation would be meaning do a 180. You're going this direction, that ain't working. Habilitate, get you going in another direction. Okay? It's not about habilitation. It is about warehousing. It is about retribution. It is about punishment. It is about and profit. Okay? So those things are just a horrible combination as far as just the humanity. I won't even get off on that as far as how I feel as far as humanity and the criminal justice system. And I'll say with me, yes, I belonged in there. I belonged in there. But once the things of life have somebody go up in there, what does society do to make sure when that person comes out? Because do you know 98% of the people, actually probably 99% of the people are getting out, and they're going to be your neighbors. They're going to be working at your grocery stores. There's going to be pumping gas. They're going to be taking your change at Circle K. And a lot of these jobs are going to get filled because we have a lot of people running around here, opioids and all that stuff, that are not even available to work. So these other places are going, where are we going to get people to work? Because there's a lot of people that just, wait a minute, I went to college. I'm not going to be working at Circle K. So now those menial labor jobs, with the exception of picking lettuce and doing all that stuff, which we have the immigrants doing it. These other places need employees. And you know who's some of the best employees? Guys that came out of prison. So, do you want, now just let me just ask you a question. Guy's paid his debt to society. And say he has an education. Do you want that guy? Nope, let me change it up. Guy gets out of prison and he's looking to reestablish his life. But there are no opportunities. Everybody looks at him like, you're a bum, you're a criminal, and all this other stuff. And now he becomes more frustrated. And while he was in prison, there was no programs. There was no school available because they're slowly taking that stuff out of there. So now that person comes back into the streets the same way they were right before they went in. Now that person's gonna be in your neighborhood. Does it make more sense that if we're spending $40-something thousand to incarcerate somebody either in the jails or in the prison? And I saw this during the midterm debates. They were talking about that the state of Florida spends about $45,000, and I know this is pretty consistent around the country. Florida spends about $45,000 a year to incarcerate somebody, and it's about $7,000 or $7,800 a year for a person for school. Ooh, now either Florida or Arizona. One of those statistics, I saw that. Maybe it was here in Arizona, and we're at the bottom as far as ranking. But think about that. What if we somehow flipped it around that we were only spending, $20,000 on inmates? Isn't there a way to reduce that? Do we really need to spend that amount? When you have, look at that. So we're spending 6 times the amount of money on criminals. And the people, oh man, we need to keep the streets safe. I'm going, when was the last time you seen somebody rob a bank? When was the last time you see somebody go into a grocery store and rob a grocery store? When was the last time you seen somebody smash a car window and rob somebody on the street? When was the last time you actually seen somebody getting jacked on the street? When have you seen that? When have you seen or when have you heard like a home invasion? All these crimes and stuff that we're reporting on there, Okay, I got off on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm just saying we are spending way too much money on the criminal justice system as opposed to the educational system. So, all right. So my thing is that, the criminal the prison system is a really unique animal. All right. And what I mean by that is it's not for rehabilitation. It's for punishment and it's for retribution. It's trying to make somebody feel a little bit better and safer. But really, if they're getting out for the most part in, a reasonable amount of time, what are you doing while that person is in there? What do you have in place in the system? And I say that it is so difficult to get yourself a good footing that you are more than likely going to do the same thing you did, which got you in there, whether it's drug use, alcohol, crime, or whatever. It's not a real concerted effort to raise the level of a person's belief in themselves and the ability that they can do things. That's why, as I'm doing this, at some point in time, I'm going to say, you know what? I would like to actually be the voice in this prison as far as taking people through meditation, taking people through transformational thinking as far as because most of these inmates that I understand now believe that it is completely out of their control as to why they're in there. And once you're able to then let them know that, hey, look, you are in control of this. You did bring yourself up in here. So if your behavior brought yourself in here, you do have the ability to bring yourself out. All right. So again, that whole inmate mentality, as what Viktor Frankl talks about, one of the problems is that they are minimizing reality. I watch them do it every day. Is that they would try to do everything in their power to get out of looking at where they were right now. They were constantly looking at how shitty their past was and how shitty that past has created this. So they didn't want to do anything with this. So then they would try to, just try to get into something that got them out of it, whatever it was. And Viktor Frankl says, in order for you to make the change that you need to have in the future, you must embrace the now. Now, the quantum physics, the epigenetics and stuff that I'm now reading now talks about meditation, creating the life that you want. Really, really stay in that moment. But again, I say the same thing. Come back, embrace the now. Know that you are where you are. Know that you created this, that you are right now. But again, then understand that if you created this, you can create out of it. All right? And if you don't do that, you fall into what I call the cycle of the dilemma of the poverty conscious, where you're constantly just looking for scraps and crumbs to get yourself through this moment, accumulating shit that you're not even going to be able to use. It's just you're accumulating stuff because you don't think you have enough. You're just in this whole mindset of lack and scarcity, and I got something a little bit better than this person over here, and it just goes into a cycle. And as I talk about that in prison, I see people out in the real world doing the same thing. All right? So, one of the most powerful things that I want to share with you is when Viktor Frankl wrote that book, okay, whether he wrote that book 8 days after he was out or in 8 days from himself getting out, think about this. Think about his recall. This is what blew me away, because at the end of when I read his book, okay, they didn't have any pens, papers, anything to write with. All they had to do was just sit in their own mental devices at the end of a day. And they were either listening to people bitch and moan and complain, and how powerful, I realized how powerful this man's mind had to be, because that was some shitty stuff he was going through. It was just a horrible environment. But he stayed focused on what he wanted to do and what he wanted to be, which actually got him through that. But here's what's interesting. He couldn't write down at the end of the day anything that went on. More than likely, he probably would have been killed had he done that. In my situation, this is why I look at it and I go, I was incarcerated and it was the worst experience of my life. I can't even imagine what he was going through. Because at the end of every day, I went to a cell, which may have been sometimes a little cold, may have sometimes been a little hot. But as I read his book, he was basically in like one of Joe Arpaio's. And if you don't know who Joe Arpaio is out here in Arizona, he had this tent city set up where inmates were outside in the summer, outside in the winter. That was equivalent to, closer to the concentration camp. But what I'm getting at is I had pen and paper. And at the end of the day, I could sit down in my cell and I could empty out my skull as far as what I went through that day. Think about that. Think about that for a second. That allowed me to have some peace as I was able to just kind of relieve myself of some stress. Very, very powerful time that Dr. Frankl did not have. And so he was able to recall very specific incidences. I don't know how long he was in there. I hadn't looked to see how many years he was in there. But it doesn't matter how long he was in there. He was able to recall very specific incidents and then attach, his psychological, his clinical psychology knowledge to that experience. Very powerful. So I was like, wow, I was able to recall the stuff as I look back, and then as I wrote these things down and I was looking through the journal, it conjured up ideas. But this Viktor Frankl wrote nothing down. So once he got out, he was recalling from just his memory. It wasn't notes or anything like that because he couldn't write anything down. So that brings me to this point. We're getting to the end. Is that, again, my challenge is always ask yourself 3 questions. What do you want? Why do you want it? I mean, really know why you want it. And can you put a picture in your mind and have this picture every single day on what it is you want your life to look like? Or what do you want to be, you want to do, you want to have, at the end of this goal? And then I want you to make sure that you are present. Every single day, try to become as present as possible. Okay? Because what I want you to do is I want to make sure that you are paying attention to, if you're having some crazy thoughts, become present with those. And what I've tried to instill with my kids is that when you have a negative thought, you need to replace it immediately. And the only way that you can do that is if you become present. Because if you just let that one negative thought go, it's going to spiral into another one, and another one, another one, another one, another one. But as soon as you hear that negative thought come about, you go, oh, replace it with a positive thought. So it's going to come up. They're going to come up again. They're going to come up firing. You always try to remember, let me replace that. Let me replace that. Let me replace that. You keep doing that, you're going to get so good that your body's going to start responding, and it's going to just start bringing up those positive thoughts as opposed to waiting until there's something negative and then you're having to replace it. All right. This is Plan Your Greatness. And I'm going to say this again. Plan your greatness. Why? Because no one else will. I'll see y'all next time.